Hello, man. Hello, Mgtow. So I pressed the start button early. I was gonna wait a second and bring my YouTube page up so I can actually see what's going on and everything and all that. I'm gonna do that right now. There we go. Sounds good. I can see myself. I can see myself on YouTube. But today we're going to talk about Mgtow, and it's a lot to swallow. Sometimes there's going to be things that are going to be said to you that's going to bust your whole paradigm. There's going to be things that said that to you that's going to break your whole paradigm. I know how hard it is in here. I had to go through the whole thing myself the last 20 years or so in Mgtow. There's been some things said to me by Ben like Angry Harry and some of the older guys that I didn't believe at the time. I didn't want to believe them. I was a daddy. I was a father. I was convincing myself of those things. And then Angry Harry said to me one day, he says, Joe, yeah, it was Joe. I was using Joe at that time. And he says, Joe, what you're experiencing is just post Kavad syndrome. It's post pseudocyesis. It's Kavad system is when a man feels he's pregnant. I say often that what you're experiencing is, as a man, a sympathetic pregnancy, and some of these men can continue that psychological. It's purely psychological. We get in these situations with women that we are over hormoned. Their hormones. We're doing way too much work. We're coming home. She's pregnant. She's yelling. She's there, and we do these things where we become sympathetically pregnant. Kavad syndrome is a real syndrome, and sometimes men develop bellies. Sometimes they get hormones going, and it's mainly a psychological problem. And that psychological problem doesn't go away, and females manipulate that psychological problem. They feel it. They see the males acting in a feminine way, a loving, caring way. They used to have this male in the house. This male used to be strong like Joe, it's like, and then all of a sudden he's a simpering, whimpering, fat belly guy that's over emotional. And we see that today, and we've seen that do these last couple of videos that I did about fatherhood. And I know that stuff is a lot to take in, that you're not a father, that she's having a baby. Some people call me a feminist. Some people call me all sorts of words, deadbeat dad and everything. I'm far removed from being, any kind of father or anything. That's 20, 30 years ago. So saying those kind of statements to me is just ridiculous, But what I want to talk about is the real physical and emotional problems that I see around here with fathers and MRA and those stuff. I see men standing in front of courts experiencing that post-Kavad syndrome where they're yelling at the judge, "You're taking my baby away. You're taking my baby." They're acting feminine, like a woman that can't release that child, even though the child is 100% the females. It's 100%. I've went over this. That's the hard part to release for men. They carry that sometimes their whole life. That's a pseudocyesis, this fake pregnancy that somehow they had a baby. Like I say, Al Bundy puts it perfectly when he says, all masculinity has lost the first time the first male said, we're pregnant. Because you're not pregnant, she is. And she's going to experience that, and you're not. But some men psychologically, and I notice this a lot, and it goes back to what I was talking about. They don't want to release those situations. Naturally, in biology in caveman days for the last 3 million years here, at least, well, Precambrian, there's no such thing as a Precambrian rabbit, but I know there might be a Precambrian simp or a Precambrian white knight or a Precambrian cackling hyena. That would be a horrible thing. But for 1 million, 2 million years, at least, men have been, the mating process has been totally different. Men know of sexual cryptis. They know they're not fathers. They know that that's nothing to do with them. Either the woman's receptive or she's not. If she's receptive, the man runs up on it, hits it, and he moves along. Men were migratory back then, and that's the what only in the last 100 years have men been experienced this Kavad syndrome, where they get sympathetically pregnant because they're put into situations. Even in the Western time, in the 1800s, men would ride off on their horses for weeks and weeks and weeks, and men don't belong in the house with a pregnant woman. You get too much hormones in you. You get a big old belly. You start acting like a woman. That's what I'm saying. That's a psychological thing. It's a very psychological thing, and men carry that for long periods of time. And I see that in the MRA, and I see that with a lot of Mgtows and the guys that are yelling at Laz, "Gee, stop it! You're acting like a woman." He still thinks he's a mommy, and he wants to be a mommy, and he wants so badly to be that mommy for that baby, and he doesn't realize that it's hurting him and it's hurting the world we live in. And there's so many reasons why men need to release these things and just move along. And that's what Mgtow is about. We don't live with women. We know that's a horrible, horrible thing. Religion tells us that living with women is okay, but we find out in this short 100, 200 years that we've been doing this, that it has devastating effects. But in that, the women will manipulate these sympathetic pregnancies, where this man psychologically thinks he's a daddy, a father. He thinks he needs to stick around and everything. I explain this bisexual crypsis. SIS at the end of that, not the other one that they try to push. They don't want you to know about sexual crypsis. They want you to think women have cryptic choice, and sexual crypsis is totally different. It's a biological thing. Women are sexually, they hide their fertility for a reason, so they can get support from the whole community. Hence HHS. Hence 3-4 baby daddies, hence the whole thing that you see. That's very natural in society. They want to move through dads. They want to pick up different DNA from different fathers, or different donors, like I call them. And men have this sympathetic need, this emotional hormonal need to stick around and take care of the babies. And women manipulate them things, even though they know it's horrible for the man. He gets fat. He gets big belly. He just sits around, and he overworks himself, and he does these things. But that becomes a very psychological thing. 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, she leaves, and he's psychologically crushed. He's psychologically crushed because he thought he was a mommy. He thought he was doing that with her. He thought, and men carry that for years and years and years after that. And that's what I see with some of the guys around here. And I know I have to be the father figure sometimes. Mgtow is a hard pill to swallow. You have to be a father figure for somebody. And you got to rip that Band-Aid off and tell them, hey, you're acting like a woman. Stop it. You're acting like a woman, Laz. Stop it. And I know they come up with all the insults. You're a deadbeat dad, Joe. You don't believe in our religious program that enslaves us and everything. No, I don't, because I see a million years before where we were just fine. And that's the way it is. It's just a biological fact. Religion has so screwed up this whole thing that it's almost unbelievable at a certain point. But men get these sympathetic pregnancies, and they start carrying these psychological thoughts in their head all the way through relationships, maybe up to the time they're old. And it comes out in the IUD male, where he explodes all over the place. And he does what you've seen on my last two videos, man, exploding at me. Like, you Joe, you can't say that. We need to believe that we're fathers. We need to believe that that there's something bigger, some bigger purpose in our life, when really life is just meaningless. And it's absurd. You can give your life a lot of meaning by just being yourself and doing what naturally comes. And that's the thing about it. Hey, Jason. Hey, Dr. Omni. Today we're talking about post-sympathetic pregnancy for men. They carry these things for forever in their lives. These hormones go on, especially if you're living with a woman. The man gets he takes on those hormonal qualities, and we can tell around here. We can tell with men that don't live with women's. They have more masculine features, like me and Joey, and we act a little different ways. We don't believe in stupid things, but when you get around those hormonal situations where you're changing the very way you think, it gets also confusing. That's why I got those rocks up in the back. It's a parallel world that we live in. It's like Mgtow's out in, I hear it all the time about this red pill. These people drop these things like they know something that nobody else knows, but they can't explain it. Mgtow explains everything. I'll explain everything to you. It's perfectly biological and perfectly scientific. What happens to men when they're around a pregnant female, they experience the pregnancy. They want to be the mommy daddy guy. They get fat, they get lazy, they lay around, they start talking effeminately. And we've all known those men that they get those effeminate qualities after they've been in relationships, and it's like they don't want to be around the dudes, drink beer in the garage anymore, and throw tools at each other and stuff like that. They just, I gotta go home, see my baby. Kelly's having my baby. It's so disgusting, but that's what happens with the chemicals in our brains, and it becomes a psychological problem that we can see in the MRA. We can see men fighting for their children, or what they believe is their children, in courts. $200,000-$300,000 they're throwing at the courts. I've seen a man lately throw $200,000 at the court system and end up with the same settlement I have when I walked in without a lawyer, turned my back on a court and went like this. I went like this. I said, no, I don't believe in your system. F you. The law is the law. The judge can only go by the law. I turned my back on the system. He gave me the things. I went through all the processes 20 years ago, and that's it. My life has been pretty good because I keep a real firm footing in Mgtow. I keep a real firm footing in reality. What is the reality out there? When I see these men running around, or like, oh, I'm pregnant and I'm having a baby. No, you're not. No, you're not. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But that's the psychosis in the religion that I talk about. That's the psychosis in what happened these last 200 years here, since Christianity has permeated our world. Men actually think that, and they will be violent, and they will be IUD. Their hormones are out of whack. You ever see a tranny that's going through this hormonal period? They're mean, and they're that's what's happening to men in these situations, and they believe that those babies are them. And I'm just telling the truth, and I'm just saying, hey, men, forget all that garbage. Forget all that garbage. Act like a man and get back to being a man. Go take a bike ride. Go in the woods. Go some fishing. Get away from those women for a while, and you'll wake up and you'll start seeing it. We can always tell in Mgtow when a man is oversaturated with the estrogen, because that's the way he acts. There's no masculine quality. The complaint around the PUA is men are losing their masculinity. Then they peacock themselves and dress up like girls. It's like, wow, because you wonder why they do that, because the estrogen is saturated inside of them. And no, the only real way to do it is the monk way to do it. And in the monk way to do it, we just release all those stupid things. We regain our masculinity, and the first thing a Mgtow would have to do is just separate himself from females for at least 60 to 190, 20 days. Reduce those estrogens in his body. Take some zinc and eat some fatty foods, and then within 90 days that stuff will start coming out of your body. You'll clear up. The hormones will turn off. The brain chemicals will turn off, and you'll start thinking clearer. You'll start thinking like a man. You might even get some facial fuzz. Hey, wouldn't that be cool and groovy? But a lot of these boys, I see when I look at these situations that are prevalent in Mgtow, a lot of times I see that sympathetic pregnancy where they're still fighting for fatherhood, even though the judge has said, boom, you are not a father. No more. She gets the babies. You get to be the payee. And that's that religious system forcing you into the system of slavery, which they like. You're the payee now. And he's going to fight with hundreds of thousands of dollars, something that he's going to get the same decision as the next man that walks in there, says F you to the judge, turns his back and say, I don't believe in your system. It's the same penalty. It's the same penalty, but he just gave this court system that manipulates men $200,000, and the lawyers kept it going forever. That's what we fear for men. We don't want men falling down those traps, and marriage is a trap. It's not natural. There's nothing natural about it. I hear these idiots and these guys talking about, oh, we're just natural. It's natural for just men to pursue women. No, it's not. You know what's natural for you? To be out in that forest running around killing something with a stick. That's what's natural for you. But we've lost those instincts as men. We can't even smell animals anymore. We've lost our fur. We are a long way from that garden, man. But we still have these things in us, these better ways to do things. We know the way things work. Deep down inside, you know I'm telling you the truth. We're just animals all in all. We're just the same as a dog or a pig. Well, some people are more piggish than horses, or cowish, or donkeyish. Some men are very donkeyish. But we've introduced this whole religious thing into, and it confuses. And I see the Christians on one side, there's Christians, and there's the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Them are the people that the English, they created divorce, and they'll hold on to that tightly because they created that during Milton and the arguments that went on, and King Henry. He couldn't have a baby boy, so he created divorce, and he kicked the Catholic Church out of England, and they created a divorce system. So they're going to hold on to that and that portion of the land. And I see this sympathetic pregnancy. I see these harsh words they have for me. They're willing to throw another Mgtow under the bus, to call him names when they're confronted with the unfriendly truth of biology. Man. Simping is simping, man. And I know I forgot to do it today. Hey, man, go your own way. All your sins from the past are forgiven. I do that for a reason, because Mgtow gives you the ability to get over these things, to learn a little bit about the natural world you live in. When you look back there, you learn a little bit of how cognitively split and the duality of men. The duality of men is crazy because he's living on two different planes of existence. This big lie that's told over on this side, and then there's the truth over here. We live in these communal situations which independence is just disregarded, and independence is what most men need. They need to be running around out there in the woods and on those rocks back there and just jumping around and exercising and killing saber-toothed tigers and hunting down their food. That's what makes us the best we can be. When I go fishing, when I go hunting, I feel more connected with the world than I ever feel before. It's natural for us to feel that way. Being stuck inside of a house in these communal situations that weren't made for us. Like I say, I'd rather have a garage with a bed than a house and a nest. Men aren't supposed to live in nests. And I'm trying to be easy on the guys when they come around, and even the older guys that we see that are just raging out against me are still hanging on to that old sympathetic pregnancy where they think they're this and they think they're that, but they're just crazy in their heads, and their hormones are still raging, and their biology is all out of whack, and their masculinity pretty much is lost, and they're acting like they're mommies. Quit acting like a bunch of mommies. That's what I tell them. And I know that's hard when I rip that Band-Aid off and I tell them the facts about these things. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. And there's very few men that want to get it. There's very few men that have crossed that barrier over to the other side. Very few Mgtow have their feet firmly on ground and going, wow, what did they do to me when I was a kid? They programmed me with all this garbage and they wanted me to be normal. I had to shed all that stuff. That's why I used those rocks back there. That's why I'm getting very, very comfortable with those back there. It's two worlds. The duality of men is crazy. There's cognitive dissonance. There's all sorts of things that you're just going to be lied to and manipulated in. And what really the world wants from you is they want your utility. They want you to work hard. They want you to make everything better. They want you to build those big, beautiful, modern buildings and build those and just keep doing your work. And they don't care about if you're going to work yourself to death doing that, as long as they get what they want. But Mgtow sees that as an unfair thing. We want equality. I want abortion rights. Hey, I want the right to financially abort too. That's when you see even the most liberal of people balk conservatively, and they're like, no, no, I want the same kind of equality. Ella Vista was right. There is a world of the manipulated male. And that's what I'm telling you about. I know that's a hard thing. You're going to have to rip that Band-Aid off, and you're going to have to start coming into a world of fact and biology and science. A lot of people don't like that world, and we see resistance to that all the time. Postmodernism is just science. It's the world we live in, and we gotta get with it. Or this world that we live in is just going to keep growing and growing and growing. And at some point, we're going to destroy it because there's too many people now. This thing's going to have 1 billion people on this planet. We can already feed it. One famine comes and 2.5 billion people die. We are sitting on the razor's edge right now. We're worried about coronavirus. They're shutting down the world right now so no one gets sick. It's crazy. But that's how many people there are in the world, and it generally reflects all of those people. But in Mgtow, we're neonatalist. If I'd have known better, I probably would have never had any kids. Bringing kids into this world is just like, man, that's cruel. And I was a cruel person. I was a soldier. I'm a killer. Yeah, just call me what I am. I get sucked into all these things in life, and we have to come out of it, and we have to practice a new religion, the religion of Mgtow, the religion of truth in our world, and that puts us squarely on firm ground. And you'll be a better man for it. But when I look around, it's sort of funny and laughable sometimes when I see the men exhibiting the post sympathetic pregnancy, Corvad's disease or syndrome, and they're acting like girls, and they're fighting for that fatherhood, which is never a real thing anyways, and they're fighting for that. No, just give it up, man, because you're probably going to lose anyways, and the laws aren't going to change. They're not going to change because you want it to. And even if we did get a vote on this, they'd probably vote we'd lose because there's just more women and simps in the world. So arguing with them is just know the truth. And if you know the truth, you'll be better off. You'll be in a better position. My friend Joey says Mgtow is like having pocket aces. That's why he puts pocket aces up there, because it's like knowing what's going to happen before it happens. It's a good feeling when your feet are firmly on the ground in the world of truth, not in that world back there of cognitive dissonance and the blue pill matrix and all the lies that they can feed you about the world you live in. And I feel bad for some men because they're still stuck there. And I know how hard it is. And I've been raged out at this last week about things I say. And I'm not telling no lies. It's 100% biologically provable truths. But there will be people that, the men want to stick in that matrix. They want to believe that. They want to live that fantasy fiction world where they're like mommy daddies and they're at home and they're happy and there's cherry pie and she's standing there and everything's great and you get you another mommy. But these men are lazy men. They don't want to make their own beds. They want someone to do it. They don't want to clean their own carpet or clean their own bathrooms. They want someone to do it for them, and they want someone fat and pregnant in the kitchen to cook their dinners for them so they can get fatter, and experience some of the hormones and that sympathetic pregnancy with her, because it's a very selfish and it's a very selfish and one-minded thing to think that way. It's very traditional. And we call it traditional, but really cavemen never thought of that. They would never even consider living inside of a house, a nest. And when you look around your neighborhood, just consider all these things. They're all nests for people that are breeding. And if you're a single man and you own one of those nests, all they want to do is take it. The other birds want to take it from you. And they want to make you pay for everything. We talked earlier about Thoreau, David Henry Thoreau, and his resistance against the stupid. And he went to jail because he's not going to finance something stupid. These MRAs, I see them financing that whole thing, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on something they're going to lose and maybe get the same settlement that the regular guy that walks in there and goes, F you. This court's a kangaroo court. But they'll do that because they're sympathetically pregnant. They post-sympathetic, post-Carver's disease. They want to believe that they're fathers. They want to be daddy mommies. They want to raise the kids. They want that happy fantasy fiction land. But that's not real. And it splits your mind. And it hurts. And you become confused. No wonder men just walk out like zombies every morning, go to work, come back, lay down in a lazy chair, pass out, get up, and do it all over again. That's Sisyphus rolling that boulder up that hill. You do it all over again the next day. And all Camus talked about this. A lot of philosophers talked about this. Don't get into that thing. You're not supposed to live with that woman. You're not supposed to live in that house. You're not supposed to do that same thing every day, roll that boulder up the hill. That is such a philosophy that men don't understand. They use that Sisyphus thing for everything, absolutely everything, to prove every point they want. But what Camus was saying is, don't get into this thing. Don't do that where you're rolling that boulder up that hill over and over, and you're looking at the world, and you look at it. And you see the absurdity of this whole thing at some certain point. So I'm back again. Nothing to do. COVID virus has got us all locked in our houses. The world's shutting down. I talked to Swine Dog yesterday, and yes, if you're asking about Swine Dog is fine and he's okay. He's playing out, but they shut down the bars that he was playing in, and I feel bad for him because this thing's hurting him financially. But Swine Dog's okay, and he's still around. So Mgtow is going to be a hard pill to swallow, and there's going to be things that are said to these new men around here that's going to rub against the grain, the fabric of their life, and it's going to rip through that fabric. But it doesn't mean it's not true. Matter of fact, it's going to be 100% truth. It's going to come with the sharpness of truth, and it's going to cut through that fabric of deceit. And it's going to leave you a better man at the end. It's just rip the Band-Aid off as fast as you can, because I see a lot of guys struggling with the Mgtow 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. And then I see guys that get it 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. But at a certain point, you're going to have to rip that Band-Aid off. And that's a tough one to swallow. Hey, thanks a lot, man. And thanks a lot for coming around and listening to me. And I know, the simping is everywhere. And they're going to show up here. They're going to show up in the columns down there. And they're going to be raging out about how they want to be daddies and how they want to be daddy mommies. But that's just their disease talking, and their disease split their brain in two, and they no longer think right, and they're thinking one thing, and they're thinking they can have another thing, and they're very confused, and they need your help. And that's why I'm here, and that's probably why I can never leave Mgtow, because someone's got to be the responsible adult around here, and someone's got to be Trav Daddy, OG Trav Daddy. And that's who I am. And I know I'm about as abrasive as an old boot. But hey, that's just the way they made me. So you can believe it, or you can continue living in fantasy fiction world. That's all I asked them. They have the right to do that, but they don't have the right to push that fantasy fiction delusion and where it affects my life. And they can stay out of my life, and they can continue to consider themselves mommies. But I don't consider myself a mommy. I'm a full-grown man, and it's long past those days. So if they want to keep effeminate and thinking that way up in their brain, they can. Come into the Mgtow. It's a much nicer place. It's a lot easier, and at least it makes your mind settled. Thanks a lot, men, and thanks a lot for showing up. And most of all, thanks a lot for being Mgtow.